go. They generally can't be stored, and so we have to consume them pretty regularly. Okay. So vitamins 1 through 3, as we group them together, these are generally found in whole grains. Um, so this is where I said in the 1800s, this is when we started seeing the white bread that was softer because they had the husk removed. We also had the polished rice, where we would today call that white rice, but it basically had the outer shell removed. And that's where all the vitamins were. So refined grains like polished rice are now enriched in vitamins. So we need to be able to distinguish the term enriched from fortified. So enriched means that we're restoring it to natural levels. So basically, they figured out that if I had this much wheat, but I didn't take out the nutrients, how many nutrients would be in there? And they've added that much in there. So they've restored this to the natural levels so that I can have the smooth texture of the pasta without having to have the wheat germ and the crunchy parts and things that maybe I don't like that texture. So um, these were associated then in the 1800s with some diseases. And different parts of the world, people saw this appearing in different populations based on why they had nutritional deficiencies. But it tended to be a combination of poverty, so they're limited to not having a lot of food, and lack of variety. So they're only eating one kind of thing. Generally, if you eat a lot of different kinds of things, you're going to get your vitamins from somewhere. Even if you have white bread, maybe you're having your vitamins from your leafy greens or something like that. So one of the problems they noticed was called beriberi. So beriberi is associated with B1 or thiamine. And this causes encephalopathy, which is the brain increasing in basically getting swollen. And so that causes mental problems, including amnesia. And so the problem with this is when you have primarily a grain-based diet, so you're not eating vegetables, you're not eating meats that might have these other vitamins in them, and that they're low in protein. And so one of the studies of this, I think, was done in India, and they tested chickens by giving some of the chickens whole grains and some of the chickens, excuse me, the refined grains that people were eating. And they saw the similar symptoms in the chickens that had the refined grains. And one of the reasons that it took a long time for people to understand this is that they didn't understand the difference between a disease because I wasn't eating the right thing and a disease that I can give you because I have a germ or I have an illness of some kind. And so it took a long time to convince the scientific community that this wasn't just I'm sick and therefore I made you sick. Everybody in the same household would be sick because everybody had the same diet. So when they start feeding people varied diets, especially with more proteins, additional sources of proteins are going to have additional sources of vitamins. In the United States, in the late 1800s, corn became a very popular thing to grow. It was very easy to grow, and it was very cheap to grow. And so all throughout the South, that was the common source of food for people to eat. Now, this was not something that had been grown in Europe. It had come from the Americas, but the Native Americans used to treat it with an alkali. Remember, alkali means a base. And in that process of watching it, they would break down the components that were keeping the vitamins from getting into the food. And so there was niacin, but it wasn't bioavailable. Okay, so you would eat the corn, and the corn had the niacin, but your body couldn't absorb the corn; it would just go right through you. And so there were a lot of people throughout the South who were having having pellagra, pellagra, Pelagara. Yeah, something like that. I'm not good with these pronunciations. So it causes these skin lesions here. And then it ultimately causes some mental problems as well. So in the early 1900s, when scientists were starting to say maybe this is an issue with the corn, first they thought it was maybe there's like a fungus growing on the corn. And then other people were saying, you're just attacking us because we're from the South. These are scientists from the North who are trying to say that, we have a bad culture. This is our cultural heritage here, that this is what we eat, and you're saying bad things about us. And so it took a really long time for them to be able to establish that this was more about what nutrients were available than other causes. All right. So next one we're going to look at is folic acid. Folate helps new cells to grow, and in particular in a fetus, it helps to form the tube that goes around the spinal cord. Women who don't have enough folic acid during pregnancy, that tube doesn't close completely, and the spinal column might be exposed for the baby after birth, which of course is very problematic. So one place to get that is from dark leafy greens. There is a little bit of a bioavailability issue with that, how much can be absorbed. And so therefore, a lot of women take prenatal vitamins. And one of the things that will be high in is going to be folic acid, because they want to make sure that, especially early in pregnancy, when the spinal column is forming and closing, that happens early on. All right, so this isn't naturally found in grains, but it is so important that I think it was in the 1980s, maybe 1990s, they decided, let's go ahead and add this to our grains along with other things. Since it's not there naturally, we're not enriching it, we're fortifying it. So the difference between enriching and fortifying is whether it was there in the first place. So for fortified, we're adding nutrients that weren't there before. So folate was fortified into cereals, breads, pastas, anything that would come from like a wheat or a rice. We'll also see iron fortification as well, particularly for infant food, just to make sure that kids have enough iron. So we talked about 3 different problems. Which of those is associated with the unprocessed corn? Let me see what the choices are. I don't think I gave you the name of the, okay, I did describe it to you. Okay, cobalamin. I want to make sure that we hit this one because I know a lot of people in college try out new diets, particularly you might attempt to become either vegetarian or vegan. This is only found in animal products. So it can be found in cheeses and dairies and things like that, and in eggs. So it doesn't have to be meat, but it's only found in animal-based products. So if you are trying out a diet that is vegetarian or vegan, you need to supplement with vitamin B12. And generally, a multivitamin of any kind is going to have that B12 in it. So this helps the bloods and the nerve cells, and lack of it can lead to what is called pernicious anemia, which is basically you're really tired all the time, and it has the same effect of not having enough iron. But the key thing to remember about B12 is it's not available in plants. So if you or someone you love is vegetarian, make sure you're getting a supplement. All right, vitamin C. I think this is the most interesting one. Vitamin C, the name for it is ascorbic acid, which literally means anti-scurvy. So they knew that the chemical would keep people from getting scurvy before they really understood what vitamins were. One of the problems is that heat destroys it. And so when they would try to preserve foods by heating them or cooking them ahead of time, they would destroy the vitamin C. And this is why you had to have limes or oranges or lemons when you had long sea voyages, because those would stay fresh for a long period of time, even if you didn't try to cook them. So like all water soluble, they can't be stored for a long time. And so if you're taking a long sea voyage, or if you're living in the northern climates over the winter, you got to make sure you have a source of vitamin C. And most plants will have vitamin C. The leaves and the fruits and things are going to have the vitamin C, but you can't cook them, is the key thing there. It is also, like vitamin E, an antioxidant, and we'll look at that next Tuesday. And it helps improve immunity, but also helps with connective tissue, which is like in your gums. So if you don't have vitamin C, your gums start to bleed. That's one of the big signs of scurvy. So big sources include peppers, potato skins, citrus fruits, but again, not if you cook. All right, real quick on minerals. So the difference between minerals and vitamins is that minerals are not organic, which means basically no carbon, and they're almost all metals, though not all of them. So things like sodium and potassium over here, calcium and magnesium, those are metals. But we do include things like chlorine, which is a nonmetal, phosphorus, which is a nonmetal. So those are also important, sulfur as well. We can have micronutrient, and we can have trace minerals. Trace minerals we really want in very tiny quantities, because you really can overdose on those if you have too much of those. So you don't want to have too many multivitamins. It's not like, oh, one is good, so 10 is better, because you can really overdose on having too much of the iron. So some of the minerals that you want to have in smaller amounts would include iron and selenium. And then the minerals that would just be micronutrient minerals would be the calcium, magnesium. Calcium and magnesium, of course, good for your bones. Sodium and potassium help the electrical signals. Remember, we talked about those with taste buds, where we said the action potentials had to do with whether those things were going in or out of the cells. So that's how we. So main focus on the vitamins, but know the difference between a mineral and a vitamin, and know the difference between a trace mineral and just a regular. I think that's the last thing. Oh, sources. So places you can get lots of things. Dark leafy greens, huge sources of lots of vitamins. Milk has A and D if it's got fat in it, but it's also got your B vitamins. It's also got calcium. Fish is a really good source, so it's not just the protein and the fats. It has A, D, K, the B vitamins. Your grains have the B vitamins. And then for a long time, molasses was called sulfured molasses. They would add nutrients to the molasses to give more nutrients. All right, so that's the end of this.